So we did a story about Hillary Clinton's new shitty book, where she basically blames Bernie Sanders for many different things. You know, she thanks him because he did indeed endorse her and campaign for her and told his voters to vote for her. So I don't know what else Bernie Sanders could have done. But what she did was is she blamed Bernie Sanders for basically making a rift in the Democratic Party. And now we have another story here from this shitty book of hers. She blamed Bernie Sanders for Trump's, quote, crooked Hillary attack. Now, the Hillary's former Democratic presidential nominee, Hillary Clinton, is blaming Senator Bernie Sanders for doing, quote, lasting damage to her campaign and, quote, paving the way for President Trump's attacks against her as, quote, crooked Hillary. According to excerpts of Clinton's new campaign tell-all book, What Happened, Clinton claims that she wanted to fight back against Sanders' characterization of her as beholden to corporate influence, but that then President Obama and others advised her to stay quiet. Quote, throughout the primaries, every time I wanted to hit back against Bernie's attacks, I was told to restrain myself, noting that his plans didn't add up, that they would inevitably mean raising tax on middle-class families, or that they were little more than a pipe dream. All of this could be used to reinforce his argument, argument that I wasn't a true progressive. My team kept reminding me that we didn't want to alienate Bernie supporters. President Obama urged me to grit my teeth and lay off Bernie as much as I could. I felt like I was in a straitjacket. So do I think that Obama said stuff about this? Honestly, I don't know. Now, with Hillary saying that this is what he used to paint her as not a real progressive, what she's doing is admitting is she's not a real progressive. Because when you think about universal health care, she says you have to raise tax on the middle class families. If that is what you have to do, it's going to benefit the middle class families because, again, we've done the math. They won't have to pay premiums and deductibles and all these different things that will save them on average, I believe, $5,000 a year. So we're fine with that part. Now, the other stuff, taxation, that, like, for example, for college, the taxation will come on Wall Street speculation, which is trading within Wall Street whenever a stock is sold and all this shit that goes on. Middle-class families aren't investing in Wall Street. I hate to break it to you, and if they are, it's very, very small. Now, again, this is some bullshit here because what she's really doing is saying is that my attempt at triangulation failed because she tried to make it look like she was a real progressive when really she wasn't. So what she's blaming Bernie Sanders or whoever, President Obama, for is that, fuck, I couldn't trick the people into believing I was a real progressive. And also basically what she's saying is, she's lying about the I wanted to hit back thing because you can't hit back. You tried hitting back. Your hit back was 9/11. You remember in the debate where he said, you took massive money from Wall Street and then they crashed the economy, and you say, 9/11. What the fuck does it have to do with that? You can be helping your city, New York City, and not be beholden to Wall Street donors. When in doubt in American politics, when cornered, when in doubt, invoke 9/11. Because apparently she got a fuckload of claps for that. But this goes on to say, Clinton ripped Sanders supporters. The so-called Bernie bros doesn't exist. And in fact, the people who claim to be Bernie bros, those are people who are just mocking the term Bernie bros. Claiming that some of the attacks against her were, quote, sexist, and arguing that Sanders' attacks against her for raking in tens of millions of dollars for paid corporate speeches made it impossible for her to appeal to progressives during the election campaign. Quote, some of his supporters, the so-called Bernie bros, who again don't exist, took to harassing my supporters online. It got ugly and more than a little sexist. Now here's something that I will admit. There are definitely Trump supporters who are sexist, and I've seen it because I've seen it, and we know Trump is sexist himself. If you recall with Megyn Kelly, he said that, and she was probably bleeding from somewhere, insinuating that she was on her period. Grabbing by the pussy and all this different shit, calling women pigs and stuff like that. So we know that, but Bernie supporters are the furthest from sexist periods. There are so many leftist women that it's not even funny. Now, this smear has no actual evidence. It's just a bullshit buzzword to try and make it look like there were actual Bernie bros when there really wasn't. Really what you're doing is you're obfuscating by calling us sexist, but really you just couldn't win on the policy positions, period. And here's we have another insulting quote. Quote, when I finally challenged Bernie during a debate to name a single time I changed a position or a vote because of a financial contribution, he couldn't come up with anything. Clinton wrote, nonetheless, his attacks caused lasting damage, making it harder to unify progressives in the general election and paving the way for Trump's crooked Hillary campaign. It's because you are crooked, you stupid bitch. That's why. Okay? Now, she is crooked. And also, with this shit, challenged, I don't remember him failing to challenge you or failing to meet your challenge that you proposed. I will tell you one. While she was, I'll give you two examples, actually. So, while Hillary was First Lady of the United States, massive campaigning during Bill Clinton's presidency for single-payer healthcare, universal healthcare, because that was what they wanted to do. The Heritage Foundation responds with virtually, which is what Affordable Care Act is, minus a few things. And that was the response. Now, why did she flip to saying just Obamacare? Well, it's because she got hundreds of thousands of dollars from the healthcare industry. That's where she got the fucking money from. And then subsequently, oh man, she flipped all of a sudden. And then the other one I have is the famous Elizabeth Warren story that I don't know if you guys have seen now. You should have, man. Very, very great story. Now, she talks about how as First Lady, she opposed and helped end this attempt in the Senate for a bill that would hurt the average everyday Americans because it was some shady-ass credit bill. And she opposed it. She helped kill it, to her credit. But when she became a senator for New York, that same bill came back in the Senate because, like she famously called it, a vampire. It's like a vampire. She supported that and she voted yes for it. You know why? It's because the credit industry is massively in the pockets of Congress. I mean, it's just known. Just go to Open Secrets. You can see all this stuff. So this is one of the most embarrassing things I've ever seen in my life. Support independent progressive media by leaving a subscription down below. Leave a like and share the video. Help us out on Patreon, or you can donate in other ways. Links are in the description down below. We are fighting Trump tooth and nail, and we will continue to do so with your help.